New Year's Eve, pregnant, thrown into the snow by her own husband. But what they didn't know, she'd been planning her escape for months. And the man watching from across the street was about to change everything. Snow fell heavy over Englewood, New Jersey, covering Bergen Street in white silence. Inside the Hahn family home, laughter echoed. Champagne glasses clinked. Neighbors gathered, counting down to midnight, believing in fresh starts. Amara Lewis stood in the kitchen, one hand pressed against her swollen belly, the other gripping the counter. She'd spent hours cooking. Korean dishes Mrs. Hahn demanded. American sides Daniel's friends expected. Everything perfect. Everything controlled. She didn't know tonight would be the night they destroyed her. Mrs. Han Sung-ya entered the kitchen, eyes cold as winter glass. Behind her stood Mr. Han Dong-kyu and Daniel. No warmth. No hesitation. Everyone's waiting outside, Mrs. Han said quietly. We need to talk. Amara's stomach dropped. She followed them to the living room where neighbors had gathered on the porch, phones already lifted. This wasn't private. It was a performance. You signed this, correct? Mrs. Han held up a folded paper. The confession. The trap they'd convinced Amara to sign 3 days ago. They'd told her it would calm things down. That admitting to misunderstandings would let her stay until after the baby came. She'd believed them. I signed it because you said it would help, Amara whispered. It did help, Daniel said flatly. It helped us see the truth. Mr. Han stepped forward. You're pregnant with another man's child. You thought we wouldn't find out? That's not true. Amara's voice shook. Daniel, tell them. You know that's not true. Daniel crossed his arms, jaw tight, eyes avoiding hers. My parents warned me about you. I should have listened. Something inside Amara went still. He wasn't confused. He was committed. Shameless woman, Mrs. Han spat. Eating our food, sleeping under our roof, carrying a curse in your belly. Please, Amara whispered. I never cheated. You know I didn't. You signed the confession, Daniel repeated, voice empty. Mrs. Han's smile was cruel. Pack nothing. Leave now. Before we call the police and tell them you're unstable. Amara's knees weakened. Her phone was gone, taken days ago for safekeeping. Her bank account, frozen weeks earlier. Even her prenatal appointments, quietly cancelled without her knowledge. Isolation wasn't an accident. It was a plan. Mr. Han grabbed her coat from the closet and threw it at her feet. Get out. It's snowing, Amara said quietly. I'm 7 months pregnant. Please, just let me stay until morning. Mrs. Han stepped closer, voice sharp enough to cut. You embarrassed us. Now leave before I make this worse. The front door swung open. Cold air rushed in. Neighbors watched. Phones recorded. Humiliation was intentional. Daniel stood behind his parents, silent, watching his wife stumble toward the door. When she looked back one last time, he turned away. The door slammed. Fireworks exploded somewhere in the distance. Midnight arrived. Amara stood barefoot on frozen concrete, coat clutched in shaking hands. Her breath came in short, painful bursts. She managed 3 steps before her vision blurred. She collapsed near a closed storefront on the corner, metal shutters pulled tight, windows dark. What she didn't know was that the building belonged to someone. And that he was watching. Across the street, a black car sat with the engine running. Inside, Seo Jun-ho gripped the steering wheel, jaw clenched. He'd seen everything. The shouting, the door, the way she protected her stomach as she fell. He told himself to drive away. He'd spent his entire life learning not to get involved. But something about the way she stayed silent, dignified, even as they destroyed her, stopped him cold. It reminded him of a winter night in Busan, decades ago, when he'd been 12 years old, left outside a closed church, told not to come back until he learned obedience. Back then, no one had opened a door. Jun-ho exhaled slowly. Then he stepped out of the car. Will he save her? Or is she about to face the cold alone? Drop a comment. Would you have helped a stranger in the snow, or would you have driven away? Jun-ho's footsteps crunched through fresh snow. He should have kept driving. Should have pretended he saw nothing. That's what survivors did. They protected themselves first. But as he approached, the woman collapsed near his storefront. Something ancient stirred in his chest. Memory. Busan, South Korea, 1994. 12-year-old Jun-ho stood outside Seomyeon Church, knees shaking, winter wind cutting through his thin shirt. His father had dragged him there after he'd stolen food from a vendor. "Stay here until you learn obedience," his father had said. Then he'd walked away. Jun-ho had waited 6 hours. People passed. Some looked. None stopped. When hypothermia finally pulled him under, a janitor found him near dawn, barely breathing. No one came back for him after that. He'd learned 2 things that night: the world didn't save you, and mercy was a luxury only fools believed in. Until now. Jun-ho crouched beside Amara. Her lips were pale, her breathing shallow. Snow gathered in her hair like a crown of frost. "Don't move," he said quietly. "You'll make it worse." She didn't respond. He removed his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders, then lifted her carefully. She weighed almost nothing. Her hand instinctively moved to protect her stomach even while unconscious. Stubborn, he thought. Even now. He carried her to his car, turned the heat to maximum, and drove. Not to a hospital. Hospitals asked questions. Questions created records. Records created problems. Instead, he pulled up to the same storefront where she'd collapsed. From the outside, it looked abandoned. Rusted shutters. Faded paint. A building the city had forgotten. Inside was different. Jun-ho unlocked the steel door and stepped into a space that didn't match the exterior. Clean floors. Warm lights. Furniture that cost more than most people earned in a year. This was his real office. The place no one knew about. He laid Amara on the leather couch, covered her with blankets, and waited. 20 minutes later, her eyes opened. She blinked slowly, taking in the room. The warmth. The stranger sitting across from her. "Where am I?" Her voice was rough, barely audible. "Somewhere safe," Jun-ho said. For now. She studied him. Tall. Controlled. Expensive watch. Scars on his knuckles. "You're not normal," she whispered. A small smile touched his lips. "Neither are you." Amara sat up slowly, blankets falling away. She noticed the coat around her shoulders. The way he kept distance. The careful way he watched her, like she might shatter. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Jun-ho was quiet for a long moment. "Because no one helped me when I needed it," he finally said. "And I'm tired of being that kind of person." She held his gaze. Something passed between them. Recognition. Not of faces, but of something deeper. 2 people who understood what it meant to be thrown away. "You can stay until morning," Jun-ho said, standing. "After that, you decide what comes next." "And if I have nowhere to go?" He paused at the doorway. "Then we'll figure it out." Morning came cold and gray. Amara woke to silence. No shouting. No judgment. Just the hum of a heater and distant traffic. She sat up slowly, her body aching. The blankets were thick. Real. Not the cheap ones Mrs. Han had given her after she moved in. Jun-ho sat near the window, coffee in hand, watching the street below. "There's soup on the counter," he said without turning. "And clean clothes in the bathroom." "Thank you," Amara whispered. He didn't respond. She ate slowly, noticing how he never asked questions. Never demanded explanations. He just existed in the space, calm and distant, like he was testing how long she could handle silence. So she stayed quiet too. After breakfast, she explored the building. Jun-ho didn't stop her. Upstairs, she found an office. Papers spread across a desk. Shipping manifests. Inventory reports. Numbers that didn't match the derelict exterior. She studied them carefully, then returned downstairs. "Your logistics are inefficient," she said. Jun-ho finally looked at her. "What?" "You're losing money on the 3rd route. The fuel cost doesn't justify the delivery schedule." She pointed to the report she'd memorized. "You could save 40% by consolidating shipments." His eyes narrowed. "You read my files. You didn't tell me not to." A long silence stretched between them. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "Someone who understands numbers." She met his gaze. "And someone who knows you're not just a businessman." Jun-ho's jaw tightened. "What makes you think that?" "The way men look at you when they call. The scars on your hands. The fact that you didn't take me to a hospital." She paused. "You're connected to something most people don't see. And you're not afraid?" "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But I'm more afraid of going back out into that snow." Before he could respond, sharp pain shot through her stomach. Amara gasped, doubling over. Jun-ho was beside her instantly. "What's wrong?" "The baby," she managed. "Something's wrong." He pulled out his phone, dialed fast. "I need Dr. Kong here. Now." 15 minutes later, an older man arrived with a medical bag. No questions, no paperwork, just efficiency. Dr. Kong examined her carefully. Stress-induced contractions, not labor, but close. She needs rest, hydration, and no more trauma. After the doctor left, Jun-ho stood by the window again, tension radiating from his shoulders. You can't stay here forever, he said. I know, but you also can't leave yet. Amara looked at him. So what do we do? Jun-ho turned, something unreadable in his expression. We make a deal. You help me fix what's broken in my business. I keep you safe until the baby comes. That's it? That's it. She studied him, sensing there was more he wasn't saying. But she was in no position to negotiate. Deal, she said. What neither of them said aloud was the truth they both understood. This wasn't charity. This was survival. And both of them were very good at surviving. Later that night, Jun-ho's phone buzzed. A message from a contact labeled only as counsel. We need to meet. Bring your report. He deleted the message, jaw tight. Amara watched from across the room, pretending to read. But she'd seen the name on his screen. Counsel. That meant he wasn't in charge. Someone else pulled the strings. And for the first time since being thrown out, Amara felt something other than fear. She felt curiosity, because people who answered to counsels had vulnerabilities. And vulnerabilities could be leveraged. 3 weeks passed. Amara's strength returned slowly. So did her sharpness. She reorganized Jun-ho's shipping routes, cutting costs by 30% in the first week. She identified suppliers overcharging him. She spotted patterns in his contracts that left him exposed. Jun-ho watched her work with quiet intensity. Where did you learn this? He asked one evening. Amara looked up from the laptop he'd given her. Rutgers. Supply chain management. I was 2 semesters from my MBA when I met Daniel. And then? Her fingers stopped typing. And then I got married. Mrs. Han said educated women made terrible wives. Daniel agreed. So I stopped going to class. He made you quit? He didn't make me. He just made it impossible. Her voice was calm, factual. Cancelled my student loans without telling me. Blocked the university's emails. Told me I was being selfish for wanting a career when I should focus on family. Jun-ho's jaw tightened. By the time I realized what was happening, I'd already missed too many classes. Lost my scholarship. Fell behind. She closed the laptop. He didn't hit me. He just made sure I couldn't leave. Silence filled the room. That's why you're good at this, Jun-ho said quietly. You already knew how. You were just stopped. I wasn't stopped, Amara corrected. I was delayed. 2 days later, Jun-ho brought her to a meeting. The council gathered in a private room above a restaurant in Fort Lee. 5 older men. Expensive suits. Cold eyes. They stared at Amara like she was an insult. Why is there a pregnant woman at this table? The eldest asked. His name was Mr. Choi. She's been reviewing our operations, Jun-ho said calmly. We don't need a woman's opinion on business. Amara opened her folder and slid a single page across the table. Your third quarter projections are off by 18%, she said evenly. You're overestimating revenue from the Newark routes and underestimating fuel inflation. If you continue at this rate, you'll lose 200,000 by March. Mr. Choi's face darkened. That's speculation. It's math. She pointed to the numbers. Your logistics manager is either incompetent or skimming. Either way, you're bleeding money. The room went silent. One of the younger men leaned forward. How do you know this? Because I read your reports while you weren't paying attention. Mr. Choi stood abruptly. Jun-ho. A word. Outside. In the hallway, the elder's voice was low but vicious. That woman is dangerous. Get rid of her. Jun-ho's response was measured but firm. No. Then you're choosing her over us. Jun-ho didn't answer. Mr. Choi's eyes narrowed. You're making a mistake. Maybe. Back inside, Amara sat calmly, hands folded over her stomach. But her heart raced. She'd heard every word through the thin walls. And she'd learned something critical. The council feared her, which meant she had power. She just had to figure out how to use it. When Jun-ho returned, his expression was unreadable. We're leaving, he said. In the car, neither spoke for several blocks. Finally, Amara broke the silence. They want you to get rid of me. I know. And you said no. I did. Why? Jun-ho glanced at her, something flickering in his eyes. Because you're right. They are bleeding money. And I'm tired of following men who can't see past their pride. Amara turned to face him fully. You're not planning to stay under them, are you? He didn't answer, but his silence told her everything. Daniel found her 6 weeks later. Amara was reviewing contracts when the buzzer rang. Jun-ho was out handling business. She was alone. She checked the security monitor. Her stomach dropped. Daniel stood at the door, looking thinner than she remembered. Tired, almost broken. She considered not answering, but curiosity won. She opened the door but didn't step aside. How did you find me? She asked. I've been looking for weeks. His eyes went to her stomach, now 8 months round. Amara, please. I need to talk to you. You had your chance to talk. On New Year's Eve, in front of the neighbors. I made a mistake. His voice cracked. A terrible mistake. My parents, they convinced me. They showed me that paper you signed and I just believed them. So you threw me out into the snow. I wasn't thinking clearly. He stepped closer. But I am now. Come home. The baby needs a father. Amara laughed, cold and sharp. The baby needs a father? You mean the baby you called a curse? Daniel flinched. I was angry. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. Silence stretched between them. Then Amara asked the question that mattered. Why now, Daniel? Why come looking for me after 6 weeks? He looked away. Because I realized I was wrong. Try again. His jaw tightened. My parents cut me off. Said I embarrassed them by letting you go without getting a signed agreement first. They wanted proof you wouldn't sue. Now they're angry I didn't handle it better. There it was. The truth. You're not here because you miss me, Amara said quietly. You're here because your parents told you to clean up the mess. That's not fair. Fair? Her voice rose. You let your mother slap me. You stood there while your father called my baby a curse. You watched me collapse in the snow and you did nothing. I'm sorry, Daniel whispered. Sorry doesn't raise a child. He reached for her hand. She pulled away. There's something else you should know, Amara said, her voice dropping. This baby isn't yours. Daniel froze. What? You heard me, but you said, I lied. To protect myself. And to protect him. Him? Who? Amara's eyes hardened. Kwame Okafor. The man I actually loved. The man I was going to leave you for. Daniel's face went pale. Kwame? Your coworker? But he died. That car accident last year. Wasn't an accident. The words hung in the air like smoke. Daniel stepped back. What are you saying? I'm saying your parents found out about us. And 3 days later, Kwame's brakes failed on the turnpike. Amara's voice was steady, lethal. Funny how that works. You're insane. My parents wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Kill someone who threatened their control? She pulled a USB drive from her pocket. I have emails, Daniel. Text messages. Bank transfers to a mechanic in Newark. Your father's signature on a wire transfer 2 days before Kwame died. Daniel stared at the drive like it was a weapon. You're lying. Am I? Before he could respond, the door opened behind them. Jun-ho stepped inside, his presence filling the space instantly. His eyes moved from Amara to Daniel, assessing the threat in seconds. Who's this? Jun-ho asked calmly. Someone who was just leaving, Amara said. Daniel looked between them, realization dawning. You moved on fast. I survived, Amara corrected. There's a difference. Jun-ho stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. She asked you to leave. Daniel's bravado crumbled. He backed toward the door, eyes still on the USB drive in Amara's hand. If you tell anyone about that, he said quietly, my family will destroy you. Amara smiled, cold as January. They already tried. I'm still here. Daniel left without another word. When the door closed, Jun-ho turned to her. You had that drive the whole time, he said. It wasn't a question. I grabbed it the night they threw me out. Along with medical records and financial statements. She met his gaze. I was never helpless, Jun-ho. I was just waiting for the right moment. He studied her for a long time. Then he smiled. A real smile. You're terrifying. I know. 2 weeks after Daniel's visit, Jun-ho made an announcement that shook the underworld. He was going legitimate. The council called an emergency meeting. Voices rose. Threats were made. You can't just walk away, Mr. Choi hissed. We own half of what you built. Then I'll buy you out, Jun-ho said calmly. With what money? With money that's clean. The room erupted. But Jun-ho didn't flinch. Because behind him, quietly restructuring everything, was Amara. She'd spent weeks creating a transition plan. Legitimate investors, real contracts, business models that didn't require looking over shoulders. The council didn't know it yet, but they were already obsolete. 3 days later, Amara went into labor. It happened fast. One moment she was reviewing financial projections. The next, water broke across the office floor. Jun-ho drove like the city was on fire. Dr. Kong met them at a private clinic in Palisades Park. No hospitals, no records, just safety. 12 hours later, Amara held her daughter. Tiny, perfect, eyes wide and searching. Her name is Nia, Amara whispered. It means purpose. Jun-ho stood near the doorway, watching. Something softened in his expression. Something he thought he'd buried years ago. She's strong, he said quietly. Like her mother. Amara looked up at him, exhausted but smiling. Thank you. For everything. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You saved us. Jun-ho shook his head slowly. No. You saved yourself. I just opened a door. For 3 weeks, life felt almost normal. Then the package arrived. Plain brown box. No return address. Inside were photographs. Amara holding Nia outside the building. Jun-ho walking beside them. Timestamps, locations, and a note in neat handwriting. The council doesn't forget betrayal. Neither do we. Jun-ho's jaw clenched so hard Amara heard his teeth grind. They're threatening her, he said, voice dangerously low. They're trying to scare us, Amara corrected. She was nursing Nia, completely calm. There's a difference. How are you not afraid? I am afraid. She looked at him directly. But fear doesn't help. Strategy does. Jun-ho stared at the photos, rage simmering beneath his control. I should have handled this differently. I should have. Stop. Amara's voice cut through his spiral. Reacting is what they want. Panic makes people predictable. Then what do we do? She adjusted Nia in her arms, then reached for her laptop with her free hand. We make them irrelevant. Over the next 72 hours, Amara worked methodically. She contacted journalists, lawyers, federal investigators. She didn't threaten the council. She exposed them. Financial crimes, tax evasion, connections to trafficking networks. Everything documented. Everything verified. When the first arrests happened, Mr. Choi called Jun-ho, voice shaking with fury. You think you've won? He spat. You think you can just destroy us? I didn't destroy you, Jun-ho said calmly. You destroyed yourselves. We just made sure people saw it. The line went dead. Amara sat nearby, Nia asleep against her chest. It's not over, she said quietly. I know. They'll come after us harder now. Let them try. Amara looked at him, seeing something shift in his eyes. He wasn't the man who'd picked her up in the snow anymore. He was softer now, more human, and she realized something unsettling. She was becoming what he used to be. Harder, colder, more calculating. The question was whether that transformation would save them or destroy them both. 6 months passed. The arrests continued. The council crumbled. But Amara didn't stop. She dismantled their network piece by piece. Bank accounts frozen. Property seized. Allies turned into witnesses. Jun-ho watched her work with growing unease. You're better at this than I ever was, he said one night. Amara looked up from her laptop, Nia asleep in a bassinet nearby. Better at what? Being ruthless. She closed the laptop slowly. Is that a problem? I don't know yet. Silence settled between them. You wanted to go legitimate, Amara said carefully. That requires eliminating threats. I'm just finishing what you started. No. Jun-ho's voice was quiet but firm. You're doing what I used to do. And I'm doing what you used to do. What does that mean? It means I'm softening. And you're hardening. He leaned forward. I'm dreaming about disappearing. About walking away from all of this. And you're building an empire. Amara's expression didn't change. Someone has to. Why? Because Nia deserves a world where no one can touch her. Her voice dropped. Because I refuse to be thrown out into the snow ever again. Jun-ho understood. But understanding didn't make it easier to watch. The final confrontation with the council happened in a conference room, not a back alley. Lawyers, accountants, federal agents present. Mr. Choi sat across from them, older now, defeated. His assets were gone. His reputation destroyed. You took everything, he said, voice hollow. No, Amara replied calmly. You lost everything. We just made sure the world saw how. Mr. Choi's eyes burned with hatred. You think you've won? You're just a woman playing in a man's world. Amara slid a final folder across the table. This contains evidence linking you to Kwame Okafor's death. Bank transfers, mechanic receipts, phone records. She paused. You have 48 hours to disappear. Or I release it to the prosecutor. Mr. Choi opened the folder. His hands shook. This is murder. Yes, it is. You can't prove I gave the order. I don't need to prove it. I just need to create reasonable suspicion. And juries love dead pregnant women's testimony. Amara stood. 48 hours. She walked out without looking back. In the parking garage, Jun-ho caught up to her. That was dangerous, he said. You just made yourself a target. I've been a target since New Year's Eve. Amara, stop. She turned to face him. You saved me because no one saved you. I get that, but I'm not you. I'm not looking for redemption. I'm looking for security. At what cost? Whatever it takes. Jun-ho stared at her, seeing a stranger wearing a familiar face. I think I need to leave, he said quietly. Amara's breath caught. What? Not forever. Just for a while. To figure out who I am without all of this. He gestured vaguely. You don't need me anymore. You're stronger than I ever was. That's not true. Yes, it is. And that's okay. He touched her shoulder gently. You've outgrown the person who saved you. That's how it's supposed to work. Tears burned behind Amara's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. When? Soon. 3 weeks later, Jun-ho disappeared. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a note on the kitchen counter. Some doors close so others can open. You know which ones matter now. Thank you for reminding me what mercy looks like. Amara read it 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in Nia's baby book. Because one day, her daughter would need to know. Strength wasn't just about surviving. It was about knowing when to let people go. 3 years later, Amara stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her blazer. Behind her, Nia played with building blocks, humming a song she'd learned at preschool. Mama, where are we going? Nia asked. To visit some people I used to know. Are they nice? Amara smiled sadly. No, baby. They're not. The drive to Englewood felt longer than she remembered. Bergen Street looked smaller, sadder. The Han family restaurant had closed 2 years ago. Health violations, tax problems, a reputation that never recovered after the council's exposure revealed their connections. Now they lived in a small apartment above a dry cleaner. Amara parked across the street and took a breath. She'd built a life they couldn't imagine. Executive director of a logistics firm. Board member of 3 companies. Respected, feared, wealthy. But this wasn't about flaunting success. This was about closing a door. She walked up the stairs, Nia's hand in hers, and knocked. Mrs. Han answered, older now, gray hair, tired eyes. She stared at Amara for a long moment, not recognizing her. Can I help you? Mrs. Han asked in Korean. Hello, Mrs. Han, Amara replied in English. It's been a while. Recognition came slowly, then shock. You. The word came out like an accusation. May I come in? Mrs. Han didn't move. Behind her, Mr. Han appeared, leaning heavily on a cane. What do you want? He demanded. Just to talk. They reluctantly stepped aside. The apartment was small, cluttered, nothing like the 3-story house they'd lost. Daniel sat on the couch, staring at a muted television. He looked up when Amara entered. His face went pale. Amara, he whispered. Daniel. Mrs. Han crossed her arms. If you came here to gloat, I came to give you this. Amara placed a folder on the coffee table. Mr. Han opened it slowly. Inside were documents. Medical records from the night they threw her out. Financial statements showing how they'd frozen her accounts. Witness statements from neighbors who'd watched her collapse in the snow. And photos. Timestamped. Dated. Proof of everything. Why are you showing us this? Mr. Han asked. Because I want you to see what you did. Clearly. Without excuses. Mrs. Han's voice shook. We were protecting our son. From what? From me? Amara's voice stayed calm. I never cheated. I never stole. I worked. I cooked. I tried to be part of your family. And you threw me out like garbage. You signed the confession, Daniel said weakly. You tricked me into signing it. There's a difference. Silence filled the room. Nia tugged on Amara's hand. Mama, can we go? Mrs. Han's eyes went to the child. Is that my daughter? Yes. Daniel's daughter? No. Amara's voice was firm. Mine. Mrs. Han's face twisted. You lied. You said the baby was his. I said whatever I needed to survive. Just like you taught me. Mr. Han slammed the folder shut. What do you want? Money? An apology? What? Nothing. They stared at her. I don't want anything from you, Amara continued. I just wanted you to know that I survived. That your cruelty didn't break me. That the woman you tried to erase is standing in your living room, successful, happy, and free. Then why come back? Daniel asked, voice cracking. Because I needed to see your faces when you realized how wrong you were. Mrs. Han's composure finally cracked. We lost everything because of you. Our business, our reputation, our home. No, Amara corrected quietly. You lost everything because of you. I just made sure people saw the truth. She picked up Nia and turned toward the door. Wait, Daniel called out. He stood, shaking. Can I at least meet her? My daughter? Amara stopped, turned. She's not your daughter, Daniel. She never was. But the dates were wrong. Deliberately. Just like everything else you believed. Understanding dawned on his face. Horror followed. Kwame, he whispered. Amara didn't confirm or deny. She just smiled. Goodbye, Daniel. She walked out, leaving them with their guilt and their ruins. In the car, Nia looked up at her. Mama, why were those people sad? Amara started the engine. Because they made choices they can't take back. Like what? Like being cruel when they could have been kind. That's silly, Nia said. Being kind is easier. Amara smiled, tears finally forming. Yes, baby. It is. New Year's Eve arrived again. 5 years since that frozen night on Bergen Street. Amara stood outside the storefront where Jun-ho had first carried her inside. The building looked different now. Renovated. Warm lights glowing through clean windows. Inside was a resource center. Legal aid. Job training. Temporary housing for women with nowhere else to go. She'd named it, Open Doors. Nia, now 5 years old, colored at a table near the window. Happy. Safe. Unaware of the ghosts her mother carried. Snow began to fall. Amara watched the street, remembering. Then she saw her. A young woman stood on the corner, phone pressed to her ear, tears streaming down her face. She wore a thin jacket. No gloves. Her breath came in visible bursts. I don't care what you say, the woman shouted into the phone. I'm not coming back. I'd rather freeze than. The call ended abruptly. The woman stared at her phone, then at the falling snow. She had nowhere to go. Amara recognized that look. She'd worn it once. Without thinking, Amara walked outside. Hey, she called gently. The woman turned, defensive. I'm not asking for money. I'm not offering money. Amara gestured toward the building. But it's cold. Come inside. Warm up. No questions. The woman hesitated. Why would you help me? Because someone helped me once. When I needed it most. The woman's eyes filled with fresh tears. You don't even know me. I don't need to. After a long moment, the woman followed her inside. Nia looked up from her coloring. Mama, is she staying for Coco? If she wants to, Amara said softly. The woman sat down slowly, hands shaking from cold and emotion. I'm Keisha, she whispered. Amara. They didn't talk about what happened. Not yet. There would be time for that later. For now, there was just warmth. Safety. A door that stayed open. Hours later, after Keisha fell asleep on the couch and Nia dozed in Amara's arms, a car pulled up outside. Amara looked out the window. A black sedan. Engine idling. For a moment, she thought. But the driver didn't get out. The car just sat there for a minute. Then it drove away slowly, disappearing into the snowy night. Amara's breath caught. She knew that car. Jun-ho. Still watching. Still protecting from a distance. She smiled despite the tears forming in her eyes. Some people saved you once and disappeared. Others saved you and never really left. She pulled Nia closer and looked around the room. At the resources she'd built. The women she'd helped. The cycle she'd broken. This was the life she'd fought for. Not revenge. Not wealth. Just the power to hold a door open for someone else standing in the cold. And that, she realized, was enough. 5 more years passed. Nia turned 10. Smart. Confident. Kind in ways that still surprised Amara. She never told her daughter about that New Year's Eve. About the snow. About being thrown away. Some stories didn't need to be inherited. One afternoon, Nia came home from school excited. Mama, we're doing a project about helping people. Can I use open doors? Amara smiled. Of course. Why did you start it? Nia asked. Amara chose her words carefully. Because I believe everyone deserves a second chance. And sometimes all people need is someone to hold the door open. Did someone do that for you? Yes. A long time ago. Where is he now? Amara looked out the window. I don't know, but I hope he's happy. That winter, Daniel sent a letter. Short. Simple. I'm sorry. For everything. I hope you and your daughter have the life I couldn't give you. Amara read it once, then filed it away. Some apologies came too late to matter. But at least they came. The Hans never reached out. They'd moved somewhere south. Disappeared into the kind of anonymity they'd once tried to force on her. And Amara realized she didn't think about them anymore. They'd tried to erase her. Instead, they'd erased themselves. On another New Year's Eve, Amara stood outside open doors watching fireworks with Nia. Mama, Nia said quietly. Can I ask you something? Always. If something bad happened to you before I was born, I'm glad it did. Amara's breath caught. Why would you say that? Because if it didn't happen, you wouldn't have built this place. And all those people wouldn't have somewhere to go. Tears filled Amara's eyes. Her daughter understood something it had taken her years to learn. Pain didn't have to be wasted. It could be transformed. Somewhere in the city, a black car sat parked on a quiet street. Inside, Seo Jun-ho watched the news on his phone. A story about a woman who'd built an empire from nothing. Who'd turned her worst night into her greatest purpose. He smiled. Then he drove away. His job was done. She didn't need saving anymore. She'd become the one who saved others. And that was exactly how it should be. Amara Lewis was thrown into the snow on New Year's Eve, pregnant and powerless. But she didn't stay powerless. She reclaimed her strength, built an empire, broke the cycle. The Inlaws who tried to destroy her destroyed themselves instead. The man who saved her learned that redemption meant knowing when to let go. And the daughter they called a curse grew up believing mercy was stronger than revenge. Some stories don't end with justice. They end with something better. A life well lived. A door held open, and the quiet knowledge that you survived everything they said would break you. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Tales by Wave for more stories about strength, survival, and the families we choose when blood fails us. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever been underestimated by people who thought they knew your worth? How did you prove them wrong? Your story matters, your survival matters, and remember, some doors close so better ones can open. Thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time, keep choosing mercy over bitterness. Keep holding doors open. Keep proving that the people who tried to erase you were wrong. Because you're still here, and that's the greatest victory of all.